Hi, I'm Robin Scrimger with Coldwell Banker here in Victoria, BC, and today we are meeting with Ittah with Herald Street Law just to talk about what happens once you've purchased a home, you've got your offer accepted, and then it leaves my hands and goes to the lawyer. So most of my clients, whether this is a first time purchasing a home or whether they've purchased many homes, don't fully understand the process, or of course it's really easy to forget what to expect. And because it's such a big transaction and a lawyer is such an integral part of that transaction, I just wanted to take some time, sit down with Aharon and answer a lot of questions that people have and have him walk you through the process rather than me, so that you know what to expect once you've purchased a home, but before you've taken possession of it.
Of utmost importance to us at Herald Street Law is that of client experience. The clients come in, oftentimes they're a little bit nervous because guess what? They're not familiar with the process. We are. This is our everyday. We want the clients to come in and feel comfortable, familiar, warm, like they've been heard, like their questions have been answered. And my goal is for that client to walk out the door feeling comfortable, confident, excited, and very happy with their service experience here. And we want them to have confidence in us in knowing that we will bring this transaction in for a smooth landing. The difference between a lawyer and a notary is a lawyer is qualified to provide legal advice to clients. And the importance of obtaining legal advice during a real estate transaction relates to legal charges on the title of the property that can be explained and perhaps elaborated on and discussed as to what the legal consequences of those charges are to the client and how it would affect the client's use of the property if we see something such as a covenant, statutory right-of-way, an easement, or any legal notations on the title of the property. Generally speaking, when I receive a contract of purchase and sale from the realtor, the title is at the end and the client has already reviewed the title with the realtor, but I take a deeper dive as part of my function as lawyer to that client. The second aspect of my role as a lawyer in the transaction would be to provide legal advice around any issues related to completion. An example could be a holdback arising out of some issues with the property that perhaps were discovered following the contract going unconditional, or perhaps even within the contract itself, there are holdback provisions that I need to administer on behalf of the client. Providing legal advice associated with those holdbacks and those legal charges on title is a key role that I play during my interaction with the client. When I receive either an email introduction from a realtor introducing me to a new client, that's when I make my first contact with the client to let them know that I will be working with them and I'll be looking after their interests, and to give them the opportunity to call me or email me with any questions before I receive the contract and something called mortgage instructions from a lender, if there is a lender involved in the transaction. Once the client and I are able to interact and the client is satisfied that, hey, I've got a lawyer and this guy's going to be looking after me, I await certain documentation. From the realtor, I await contract, any amendments to the contract, and one document called a conveyancing instruction form, which lets me know who the lawyer for the other party is, as well as provide me information around commissions and deposits. The second package of documentation that I await are lender instructions. So depending who your lender is, I will receive what we call mortgage or lender instructions, but via email or fax. It depends on the lender and the broker. And once I receive all of those documents, I'm now able to open a file and to begin the process of preparing documents for our client to review and sign with me. Once I receive the mortgage instructions and the contract from the realtor, I email the client. Now, bear in mind, the client and I have already been in contact about any preliminary issues, and I let them know to expect an email from me. And in that email, I request certain important information from the client, including things like their legal names, their occupations, their dates of birth, who their insurance provider is. There's all sorts of important information that I try to garner from the client. It's all easy for them to provide me, but it's critical to me preparing documents. In that email, I also book them in for their appointment. I meet the client generally 2 days before the funding date because the lender requires the return of signed mortgage documents 2 business days prior to the completion date. And that's, of course, if there is a mortgage involved in the transaction. When the client comes in to see me, my documents are all ready and in a certain order that makes logical sense. I start by reviewing the title of the property, including any non-financial charges which may appear on title. And those could include covenants, easements, statutory building schemes, and any legal notations. I cover this off with the clients so that they know exactly what they're getting by purchasing this property. I then go through other information about the property, such as the tax certificate, sometimes the assessment. We review property transfer tax information and a document known as the buyer's statement of adjustments, which is tantamount to the balance sheet of the transaction, and it shows all the money in and all the money out, and I explain that document in detail. From there, we dive into the mortgage documents, and depending on the lender, there could be a large stack of documents or a pretty small stack. It's my job ultimately to review the lender documents with the borrower, who's the purchaser, explain all those documents to them, and ensure they sign where they need to sign. At the conclusion of our meeting, I say goodbye to the clients, and then it's up to me to bring the transaction in for a smooth landing. And that involves me submitting all the signed documents to the lender, fulfilling all their funding requirements, and ensuring that we've met those requirements so that we are in receipt of all the mortgage monies on the day of completion. In all transactions, whether there's a mortgage or not, clients will need to bring me a bank draft so that I have enough money to complete the transaction. I don't generally know the exact number that they need to bring in until about a day before their appointment. So oftentimes the client will come and meet with me, we'll review all the documents, including that statement of adjustments, which actually tells us exactly how much I need to complete. The clients will then go up to the bank, draw a bank draft, and swing it by my office. On the day of completion, I register the transfer and the mortgage once I know I have all monies necessary to complete the transaction. After I register those land title office forms, the transfer and the Form B mortgage, I am then able to send money to the seller in the case of a purchase, and complete the transaction and let the parties know, including their realtors, that the deal is done. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or a sophisticated purchaser, there are some key things that you must look out for up front that will help you along the way. The first thing is listening to your realtor about the title of your property. If the realtor at the front end of things lets you know that there's a questionable charge on the title of the property and suggests that you have your lawyer review it, take them up on that offer. Because what you want to know before removing conditions is exactly what you're purchasing. Another key aspect of preparing for your consultation with me and the ultimate completion of your transaction, if you're a purchaser, is ensuring that you have enough liquid cash to complete the transaction. You will discuss this both with your realtor as well as your mortgage specialist or mortgage broker, and you will budget accordingly, but it's very important to ensure you have enough money that's liquid and available to prepare that bank draft so that you can bring it into me and so that I have enough money to complete the transaction. There have been circumstances where when I'm letting the client know, and albeit it's at the last minute, how much money they need to bring in, they can be surprised or caught off guard at the number. Really, it's my expectation as a lawyer that the client's expectations are such that they've discussed this with both their realtor and their mortgage broker, and that they've freed up enough funds, if necessary, in order to complete the transaction. Closing costs for purchase transaction includes property transfer tax, adjustment for something called property tax, which is different than property transfer tax. Property tax adjustment is really depending on when in the property tax year you're acquiring the property, and there's an adjustment on a prorated basis where either you're crediting the seller for already paid taxes or you're being credited with taxes that are going to be paid at a future time. Property taxes are generally payable at the beginning of July every year. Other adjustments include things like strata fees. If you're buying mid-month, If your completion date is mid-month, then perhaps you will be remitting half of the strata fees in favor of the seller. There's also legal fees, which can run anywhere between $1,000 and $1,700, but that is inclusive of all taxes, disbursements, and expenses. That's an all-in number. Title insurance is oftentimes a lender requirement if you are obtaining a mortgage, but even if you're not obtaining a mortgage, title insurance is something I often recommend to clients in the event they don't have a valid survey. Most parties do not have a survey, so title insurance is the most cost-effective way to protect landowners as well as lenders from things like title fraud and title error. And I often recommend First Canadian Title Insurance as the insurance provider, and I always send people to their website to find out how this coverage can benefit you. We are able to place that policy. We don't receive any compensation or brokerage for that. We just charge you the premium. One last adjustment one would see would be something called an insurance binder fee, which is a nominal fee, and it binds the lender in the event you have a mortgage to your home insurance policy, making them the first loss payee up to the amount that they've loaned you. Generally, the cost of an insurance binder is between $0 and $60. So not a big fee in the grand scheme of things, but I know when you're buying a new property, every penny counts. After I've reported completion to the realtor, to the client, and to the lender, I await receipt of a document referred to as a state of title certificate. Now, this document is only available once any existing mortgages that were on the title of the property in the first place have been discharged. And a state of title certificate looks just like the title to your property, but it's got a little bit of a fancy letterhead aspect to it. And once you are fully registered as the owner of the property and your mortgage is fully registered, I acquire this document and I send it out to you. And this is the last you'll hear from me in respect of that single transaction.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Aaron. I know I certainly did. As you can see, having legal guidance through the real estate transaction process is vitally important. Aside from specializing in real estate law, Aaron also practices in estates and wills and estate planning, and also corporate areas of law as well. If you need assistance with the legal portion of your transaction and or the mortgage portion, or really any other resources that you may require as part of the purchase or sale of real estate, please give me a call and I can certainly steer you in the right directions. I look forward to meeting you, and in the meantime, enjoy all that Victoria has to offer and have a great day.